And good morning. We are live on YouTube, but we're going to bring in our Facebook groups as well. Atlanta Falcons fans on All Falcons and Scott Kennedy Sports. Before we get going, I know the chat is already hopping. We're getting close to draft time, so everybody's excited and ready to go. So good morning, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast on a mock draft Monday. There will only be one more mock draft Monday before we actually have the actual NFL draft. I'm excited about that. You're excited about that. I'm Scott Kennedy, one of your hosts here in Atlanta. This guy over here is Nick Kendall. He's in Seattle. So we're coast to coast with your coverage, and he gets up bright and early with us, just like so many of you. And Nick, how are you doing this morning, my friend?
I am doing pretty well. It's the weather's starting to get me down a little bit. It's been just crazy cold, wet, but hey, it'll be summer here before long. And I keep telling myself that as longer it's cold and wet, the less likely we have for wildfire this season. So I'll take it, but I'm ready for it to get a little nicer.
Yeah, I rode a motorcycle exclusively for a couple of years, and cold and wet became my least favorite type of weather. So I was like, just snow already. And then I moved north and it snowed. And I'm like, see, this is better. I like it. And then April and May hit and it was cold and wet. I'm like, oh, you guys don't miss 40s and rain. You just call it spring. Your spring sucks. Spring in the South is nice. So you don't miss it anywhere, cold and rain. So I get it. Let's say hello to some folks in the chat this morning. Alan was first in. He says, let's go. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning to you, Alan. Thanks for coming in on YouTube. And Michael Ranquillo, as always, coming in from Arizona, getting up bright and early with us, says, good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons podcast. And he's buying coffee this morning. He came in with a magenta, hot pink, $50 super chat. Michael, thank you so much. As Chad Jensen, one of my friends in this industry, likes to say, you're a prince. You're a prince. You might be one of the kings here, though, dude. So icebreaker getting us started. Michael, thank you so much. You know how much that means to us. Denver Luke says, good morning, Scott and Nick. I am so excited for this draft. Yeah, I think there's some hyperbole and stuff, Nick, but there's talk always like, oh, this isn't a very good draft. And the draft, to me, is a little bit what you make of it. And the depth in the draft is still good. You can still get good players in the top 100, even if there are more question marks possibly in the top 10.
Yeah, it's potentially not as good as most years up to the very top, but there's always good players, and it's going to be up to those GMs to make hay with it. I mean, the thing about it is every single team is drafting from the same pool, right? So it's not like any other team has a bigger advantage than the other. Other than obviously having higher draft picks or more draft picks, you have a better chance. But I digress. Everybody has to deal with the same draft pool, and hopefully our Falcons and Broncos can come out pretty well. The Falcons in a little bit better position, though, when it comes to the draft this year.
Well, and here's the thing, Nick. They start talking about, I swear the whole draft is judged by the top of the 5 quarterback. And if it's not the top 5, how many teams are picking in the top 5 anyway? So there's more to the draft than the top 5. Now, some drafts are stronger than others, obviously, but the depth in this draft, I think is still very good. Connor B coming in says, good morning. Good morning to you. Jamal coming in on YouTube says, good morning, Nick and Scott in the chat. Mactown Dirty coming in says, morning, people. To you as well. Good to have you. Make You Fumble lets us know I am here. He is here. Kevin Mapp getting us started on Facebook. Says, good morning, guys. Good morning to you as well. Make You Fumble. He's talking. We'll get into this a little bit because I put Jalen Carter's picture on the start of the video for the teaser. He says, Carter at 8 would be great, but I think we might go guard or wide receiver. We'll get into that. We'll be here about 30 minutes today. I want to go through it, and every position is on the table. It really is, except maybe center. And that could still be on the table, honestly, depending on which offensive lineman you take who has positional versatility that he could play center his first year. Every position is still on the table for me, Nick. And we'll get into that. Joe Cannon says, great morning, fellas. Good morning to you as well. Keith Robbins says, let's roll, Atlanta fans. Good morning to you. And let's see. 100 Realists, good morning, guys. How's everyone doing this morning? Doing really well. And Jeremiah, I don't get tired, Kinlaw. Man, I wish. I'm always tired. So what's your secret, dude? Put it in. You can DM me on Twitter. Send me a message in Facebook because I'm always freaking tired. I'm like, what? is this life now? And then I'm like, oh, I think this is life with kids. You're just
Mhm.
always tired. 600 miles and 6 games this weekend. I'm tired. Edge at 8, yes. Again, definitely on the table. It's like, oh, you signed Bud Dupree. So what? So is Bud Dupree the type of guy that's so good that he keeps you from considering who you like at number 8 if he happens to be an edge? No, he's on a 1-year deal. He's older. He's
Injury
a
prone.
depth piece. We'll go through the roster, but you're still talking about your top 3 edges being Arnold Ebiketie, Lorenzo Carter, and Bud Dupree. Yes, you still need help at edge for sure. Kevin Mapp says, how serious is the Budda Baker talk? I haven't heard too much of this, but last week, Nick, one of the mock drafts guys I don't think it was Daniel Jeremiah, but it may have been Jordan Reed saying one of the sneaky needs for this team is safety, which puts Richie Grant on notice since you just spent so much money on Jesse Bates. That puts Richie Grant on notice.
Mm-hmm.
And if Richie Grant's on notice, then Budda Baker is a possibility.
Yeah, it would be an interesting one, no doubt. Falcons have the money and the draft capital to get it done if they want. Budda Baker's been a top 5, top 10 safety over the last 3-4 seasons. He would be a very fun player for them. Can you imagine sinking that much resources into your safeties, though? I mean, arguably the least impactful position on the defense. And obviously, if you have a great one, it's nice. Without a doubt, you'd rather have good players wherever you can get them. But I don't know. After just spending all that money on Bates, I don't know if I turn right around and then bring in Budda Baker and probably another contract behind it. I guess I'd have to see what it looks like. On the surface, it looks good, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, that is a massive expenditure on a position that a lot of teams can get by with average, very little pay, and be just fine.
You're putting not that much money into the quarterback room. That's one of the reasons you can do that.
Yeah.
When you've got $7 million into your quarterback room, when you're spending the least amount on wide receivers of any, I think they're last in the league. They're bottom 3 in NFL in wide receiver expenditure. Then you can spend more in other areas. Now, would they spend more on a wide receiver if the right wide receiver was available? Yeah, I think they would have gone after that in free agency. But Nick, I don't know that I saw that guy in free agency that was worth throwing 10, 15 million at this year. And the Falcons didn't. That's why wide receiver is still on the table at the draft as well. Good morning, Scott and Nick, says Mark Schrader coming in from Texas over on YouTube. Good morning as well. Terry's here. Good morning, Terry. With lots of red. Falcons. I think it's probably an eagle, but we'll go Falcons today. An exclamation point. Red Falcons. Billy Holman says, yeah, here's a nice reminder. Just hit that subscribe, like, and share button, please. And Makey Fumbles got a little schadenfreude going this morning. It says, I love how Julio is still a free agent. We were fools to give in to his demands. There were some bad contracts in there, and they're gone. That's why we're talking about how much fun this free agency period has been, because they're gone. Now let's hit on the topic real quick of the heading was Jalen Carter was reported to be visiting the Atlanta Falcons this week. Might not be today, but could be tomorrow. It doesn't really matter. If he's still in Athens, it's 45 minutes away from Flowery Branch. It's 45 miles, so could be 2 hours depending on traffic, but it's not far away. The interesting thing is it wasn't Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport. In fact, they actually 3 hours before ML Football posted this, listed the teams that Jalen Carter was visiting and didn't list the Falcons. They were kind of conspicuous in their absence, but ML Football's got a decent following, and I put both in there in the report I put on all Falcons that this is what this is saying now and then, and it could happen. Nick, Jalen Carter at number 8, what would you think of that pick?
High risk, high reward. I mean, there's just a number of things off the field, from the racing to, it's anonymous quote season, I know, but still, we have to talk about it. The work ethic stuff, you can kind of see on the field sometimes. He's a defensive lineman, but he's a little bit of a roller coaster in terms of his output on the field from a snap to snap, play by play basis. But arguably the most talented player in the entire draft class, plays a position that has become almost a little bit more thin by the year since that, what was it, the 2019 draft class. The interior defensive line classes have kind of waned a little bit. So getting a guy like that would be definitely a plus. Now, do the Falcons have to walk away with an interior defensive lineman in this draft class? No. You're talking about, we're not sure about Graham with the injury, but Campbell, Onyemata, Grady Jarrett, Eddie Goldman. You have some
back. Yep.
you have some depth on the defensive line, but not a lot of those guys are really, long-term answers there. So this would be both an immediate pick, but as well as the long term. And I also be talking about the veterans in the room. I mean, if you want to bring Grady Jarrett under somebody's wing, Calais Campbell's about. I mean, he's literally a wing for Calais Campbell, but he's about as good as it gets for that. I think Grady Jarrett would also be awesome in that situation as well. So it would make a lot of sense. The question is, do you buy into the person, Jalen Carter, more than anything?
Right. And I think from the effort level, I wonder a little bit if he was, and this sounds strange to say, but it happens, bored, with the level of competition that was put in front of him because he was so much better than everybody else. And he's a back-to-back national champion. It's like, did he do enough? Yeah. Did he help his team win? Yeah. Did he do as much as he possibly could on every snap? No. But what are you looking for in every game? Is to win. And they did. Could he have been a little bored? I think that's a possibility. That won't happen in the NFL. If you come out, he'll probably get his butt kicked a few times when he gets started. And he's such a talented physical specimen that he would step up, or get washed out. It's a high risk, high reward type of pick. Frankly, Nick, I don't think he makes it to 8. I don't think it's even going to be a question. Could the Falcons, if they're at 8, and you're convinced with the character that, hey, listen, we're not going to find this guy in police blotters and just have to cut him in a couple of weeks, and he's going to come in and work. From a talent standpoint, at number 8, abso-freaking-lutely. Again, like you said, that looking at the roster, the defensive line has gotten more talented, but they're old. They've gotten old now. Most of them are in their 30s. So injecting a talented player like him into that spot would be very nice. Again, one of the, if not the most physically gifted player in this draft.
Yeah. One more thing about, just question marks with him. The pro day, he showed up and he did not look like he had been putting in the work to do that. He looked pretty, I don't know if you remember Andre Smith's 40-yard time out of Alabama. But it was a little bit like, oh, this guy putting in the physical work to get it done out there. And he looked a little bit, not in shirt off top 10 defensive lineman type of shape, which again, just more question marks. Like, he's obviously extremely talented, but you're investing a massive premium resource into him. So you're going to have to, that's going to be the decision. If from on the field perspective, from a tape perspective, the flashes, he's a top 3 pick in this draft. He's a top 3 pick in most drafts, but
Andre Smith was a little bit genetic. He wasn't built with the, who was the guy last year from Alabama? The guy drafted in the first. Evan Neal. Evan Neal was a Greek god. I mean, just built. But Andre Smith was a little knock-knee, little pigeon-toed, 6'3.5", maybe 6'4". You want this guy at tackle? He's round. Just watch him play. I've talked about Ben Jones like that a little bit. Andre Smith is, I didn't watch everybody the last 20 years, but in my first 10 years of this business, Andre Smith was the best high school offensive lineman I ever saw. Just absolutely unbelievable. And Keith Robbins comes in and says, sorry guys, I'm a Buckeye fan. Carter seemed lazy against them. And they were fortunate to win that game. They got everything they wanted. And Carter admitted to that a little bit and then put in the work afterwards. He hadn't had to be his very best up until that point. And that's what I kind of mean about, is it, what are your goals in a game? Does he dominate the game? Does he dominate every snap? Probably not. Does he do enough to help his team win? Yeah, he's got rings for each hand now. But was he a little bored? I think that comes into it a little bit.
And he's somebody also that I'm curious, if you bring him in, he needs to be somebody who's in a very good defensive culture, because he doesn't seem like he's the guy in the locker room. He wasn't, you had Nolan Smith there, you had Nakobe Dean, you had a couple of defensive backs, were the leaders of that. I mean, even the defensive tackle from last year, Jordan Davis, leading that group more so than Jalen Carter. Now Jalen Carter is going to come in and be the, blue chip premium guy, kind of changes the dynamic in there. It's not Georgia anymore there where he can just be one of the dudes, go out there and talent. It's going to be a little bit more on his plate when you have that kind of prestige and eye on you. So again, that's why they're bringing him in. He's extremely talented, and I hope hope all this stuff is more noise than reality, or he grows up a little bit or anything like that, because I'm not pulling against him by any means. It feels like I'm piling on him, but I think you have to at least put these things out there and think about them when you're talking about this level of investment.
And Joe Cannon comes and he says, Carter is giving me Albert Haynesworth vibes. Great talent, not so great person overall. He was a lot, and I mean a lot more productive than Albert Haynesworth was at Tennessee. I had a friend of mine that was talking with a coach at Tennessee during that time. He said, Albert Haynesworth was the worst thing that ever happened to us. He goes, he laid around here for 3 years and did absolutely nothing and goes in the first round. And all of a sudden people are thinking, oh, we can do that too. And well, they weren't all as physically gifted as Albert Haynesworth where people were willing to take the chance. Yeah. But Haynesworth didn't do anything in college. I mean, his production was nothing. He wasn't Jalen Carter wasn't exactly John Henderson, another big defensive tackle for the Tennessee Vols, but he was a level above Albert Haynesworth. That's for sure. Michael coming in, he says, morning guys, love your show. Well, we love you being here. So appreciate you being here. Now, want to talk about why every position is on the table, despite all the moves that the Falcons have made. Every position is on the table, and we can go through the depth chart as we do this. The Falcons have taken pass catchers top 10 in the last 2 drafts. Okay. Well, if you're running 4 receivers out there, you've got Kyle Pitts, you've got Drake London. There's your 2 guys that were top 10 picks. Then you've got Mac Hollins and Scotty Miller. Let's be honest. The big reason those 2 guys are here is for special teams. Mm-hmm. They're not number 2 wide receiver candidates. They're 3-4s, and they're there to help special teams. So yes, if the right guy is available at number 8, you absolutely need another wide receiver, and frankly, one that would have a little bit different skill set than the twin towers of Drake London and Kyle Pitts.
See, I'm a little different than you on this, and it mainly comes down to Arthur Smith's offense. Now, granted, you adapt your offense to what you have available to you, but even at Tennessee, he was a 12-21 personnel fiend, and he's been that way in Atlanta so far. The only team to run more tight end sets than Atlanta the last 2 seasons has been the outlier offense, we'll call it that, with Lamar Jackson. So I think that bringing in a different skill set, I can agree to an extent, but I think if you're talking about, and specifically in this class, if you're talking about a pure slot type of body, I don't know if this Falcons team is looking to zag with their personnel that much. I would rather lean further into the 12-21, bring in another giant out there that can play more boundary, where then you have Pitts who can do some inside. Drake London played big slot a lot at USC. Some of his best tape was that big slot. So I don't know if you have to really go with the small, shifty kind of guy. Not that you said that, but when you talk about different skill sets in the perspective of this class, that's how I see it.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about this class in general. I'm just talking about the Falcons roster and trying to fill needs. Wide receiver is a need.
Oh, yes.
Tight end. Okay, you just got Jonnu Smith, but if Brock Bowers is in this class and you're sitting at number 8, you take a real hard look. You really do. You take a real hard look at tight end with someone like that. Now, are you going to draft a tight end at number 8? No, you won't. Knock on wood. There's no one available here. Running back. You've got Tyler Algier. You've got Cordell Patterson, he's got 2 years left on his deal, but he's more of an X factor. I still don't consider him a true running back. I consider him kind of a slash type player. But Joe asks, he says, do people think that low of Tyler Algier to really want to draft Bijan Robinson at number 8? I don't like drafting running backs that early. The best player available here. Now, I see Ryan in here also. Ryan Adonis was kind of, there was an article about best value, best pick, biggest need, and best value. And I took issue with the fact that Jordan Reed said that Bijan Robinson would be the best value pick for the Atlanta Falcons, because he started it off by saying, if we ignore positional value, well, then it's not a value pick. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm okay with you saying he could have the biggest impact of any player in this draft. He would be the best player in this draft. I'm okay with that. And if you want to say you want to take him, okay, fine. But don't go be singing me sunshine that this is the best value right after you say we ignore value. Mm-hmm. It's not. But Joe and Ryan, I'm okay with this. I understand this point of view. if he's the best player out there and you run the ball as much as you do, and you're going to run the ball 40 to 45 times a game, and you've got Tyler and Bijan doing it, I get it, Nick. I get it.
Yeah. It's a little early for me still. Like I said, I'd rather probably trade back at least once, 5 to 10 picks before we have that conversation of Bijan Robinson. Big fan of him, but still, if you take a running back, your clock starts immediately. And are you a Bijan Robinson away from not just, NFC South? I'm talking Super Bowl contending team. Because that's, I think, the type of, if you are there and you say yes to that, then okay, take the running back. If you think he is the piece away from being a Super Bowl winner, then go for it. And that's the only team that makes sense in the top 10 for me, is that could be the Eagles this year. And will Howie Roseman take a non-value position in the first round? I'll believe it when I see it. But yeah, he's a really talented player, could add a lot to the team. You do run the ball a heck of a lot. Running back is certainly a position that the Falcons could go again, so I would understand it. 8 overall, though, when you have offensive line, edge rusher, cornerbacks, Jalen Carter available that could help build the infrastructure at more value positions, and you can get a running back round 3, round 4 that can be a part of the system of your committee, because there's only like 3 teams or 4 teams with 1,000-yard rushers last season. That's just the way the NFL is going. Might be a better long-term perspective, but Bijan's extremely talented, and it's not just the run game that he adds to. The plays that are like no-nothing kind of plays where it's dead, and okay, like, well, our routes are gone, we're just going to dump it off to Bijan. Oh my God, 25 yards. That was a play that they covered perfectly, and our playmaker just did stuff. So that's a luxury that is not in Tyler Allgeier's bag, I will say.
Quarterback. Guess who's visiting the Atlanta Falcons tomorrow? Anthony Richardson. Is quarterback off the table? No, it's not. Desmond Ridder hasn't done enough where you would say, I love this quarterback, but I've already in love with the quarterback I've got. He hasn't done enough to prove that. So yes, quarterback is on the table here. Now, I don't know if you're going to see a guy where you say, I don't think they're going to fall to 8.
No.
I
Maybe
think the first 4 quarterbacks are going to be gone in the first 7 picks. And if one of them isn't, it'd probably be Will Levis, who the Colts are really eyeing at number 4. I don't want Will Levis at 8. Not for this team. I just soon roll with Desmond Ridder. I really don't.
I would get it still if you did do that. I mean, again, I say that he has the tools. That's obvious. He's got the size. He's kind of blind when he's a runner. It's weird. He's like a solid athlete, built well, but he just has no vision or feel for being a runner. Good athlete, good motion. Played on a craptastic team, given his comparison. Also, the fact that he's playing in an NFL West Coast offense this season, the verbiage kind of thing is not going to be as much of an issue for him. I mean, he was calling plays that were 20, 25 words long in Kentucky this last season. So
a lot of good it did him.
I mean, when you got nobody to throw to and your offensive line is not very good, and
then keep it simple. That's why your offensive coordinator got fired.
That's part of it. But I think the big thing is that he could handle it. And that's a big difference. You have the quarterbacks who they fake hike and then they look over at the cards after every single play. Like, those guys take a little bit to get out there sometimes. But I would understand it. I wouldn't do it also. If I were you, in fact, I'd be more interested in trading up to number 3 to get one of the top 3 quarterbacks than sit there and take Will Levis. But certainly an option. And the other thing is, we talked about this 100 times. If you go to bed this year with Desmond Ridder as your quarterback, number 1, it might not be just this year. It might be the next few seasons. Because are you going to have another chance to be this high with a quarterback class with this many options at the top? It's hard to say.
Right. Best case scenario, Desmond Ritter's the guy. He's cheap. He's dirt cheap for the next 2-3 years. And you can build a team around him. And that's what I think they're attempting right now. We'll see how it works out. I don't know if we'll be able to get to a mock draft. I called it Mock Draft Monday. We're going through the roster and the options. I don't think we're going to have time to run a mock draft.
We can be a little late on the other one. It's okay. We can run one.
All right. But I want to hit this because I'm going to flip over to edge. Now, on the center position, why is center position still available? Because one of the guys that you could take on the offensive line, like say Peter Skoronski, can play all 5 positions. Mm-hmm. So you need a left guard right now, possibly, and you need competition at center. If you take Skoronski at number 8, he could be that guy that pushes. He could end up being a left tackle down the road. He could play left guard right away. He could play center right away. So yes, that's still on the table. Edge, you just signed Bud Dupree. At the beginning of the show, you heard me say, but your top 3 edge guys are Lorenzo Carter, Bud Dupree, and Arla Michetti. Those 3 guys aren't going to keep you from taking a number 1 type of edge if he's there. And Thomas, yes, it could be Nolan Smith, especially if you're going to more of a 4-3 and you want to have an outside linebacker type that's speedy off the edge, because you've gotten some size now. You've gotten Calais Campbell out there where you've got some guys to set the edge. You can use Bud Dupree to set the edge on running downs and bring in Nolan Smith as a designated pass rusher. You can move him around all over the place.
Yeah, he's going to be really interesting. I don't know how much you mess with the mock draftable database, but sometimes, especially when, a little younger, like what would it look like if I moved Demaryius Thomas to offensive tackle? 0 percentile on everything, but then like maxed on everything else. That's what Nolan Smith looks like as an edge rusher, because he's tiny in terms of his height, his weight, his length, but he's like a 99th percentile athlete, everything else. So maybe he's going to move to more of that 4-3 Sam that then walks down to the edge spot against the run. Versatile player. I'm curious to see what that transition would be like, playing more of that second level defender, because the run fits, the processing, the instincts is totally different than lined up against an offensive tackle or tight end, set the edge and then play the run through the pass rush. But he's definitely an option there. I think Tyree Wilson is very much on if Tyree Wilson or Will Anderson there, that you're probably running to the podium. Are either of those guys going to be there? Hard to say at 8. You never know. But I would say it's probably not super likely that Will Anderson is there. Maybe Tyree Wilson, although, God, he just screams Seahawks to me from what I've heard and what I've seen. So we'll see. And then you talk about cornerback as well. Cornerback dropped a little bit for me from no doubt to if you love a guy, then yes. And Gonzalez, I think Billy loves Gonzalez because he says we need Gonzalez at 8. I don't know if you need Gonzalez at 8, but a cornerback trio of Gonzalez, Terrell with Okudah playing slot, which is an option, would be pretty damn intriguing.
Right. And why is corner still on the table? It's like, this means they're not going corner because they traded for Jeff Okudah and this. No. It's less likely, but you got AJ Terrell. You've got Mike Hughes, who's on a 2-year deal, but it's really a 1-year deal with a club option because he's got a $750,000 dead cap hit next year. Mm-hmm. So it's a 1-year deal. Casey Hayward is old and he's on a 1-year deal. And Jeff Okudah, guess what? He's on a 1-year deal also. So you've got those are your top 4 cornerbacks. AJ Terrell is the only one that you can see being that you would, I don't want to say guarantee, but in 2024 would all but guarantee he's an Atlanta Falcon in 2024. He's the only one. So corner, if you love a corner the way Billy says Christian Gonzalez, then yeah, corner's on the table. Absolutely on the table. Linebacker, yes, you could use some more depth there. There isn't a linebacker in this class you're going to take at number 8.
Unless you want to argue Nolan Smith is.
Yeah, unless it's Nolan Smith, somebody like that. But safety, there's not a guy there you're going to take at number 8. But we've talked already that there's some talk about who's a kid from Alabama, Battle.
Mm-hmm. Jordan
Battle being a 2nd-round pick. So I'm starting to get some noise that Richie Grant's on notice. That he might not be entirely safe also. So basically, and we'll run through this super fast, which doesn't take long. So we can't give a whole lot of explanations and all this type of stuff, but we'll run through the mock draft simulator after we just got done saying why every position should still be on the table for the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know that I missed any on there, but we'll go 7 rounds. We'll go super speedy fast. And we'll go Atlanta Falcons. And let me zoom in on this as we do our mock draft Monday. Randomness up a little bit. Draft for needs down a little bit. Positional value up some. Public board versus PFF. Yes, please. We'll enter draft and hit start new draft. And there we go. Right off the bat. We've got the choice to make. I'm doing it, Nick.
Let's do it.
Jalen Carter, the 2nd ranked. I'm taking that risk.
Yep. Jalen Carter, we talked about it earlier. If you have questions about it, just go back to the beginning. In this case, you think the risk is worth it. You believe in his explanations and the background character checks, and he's just too talented. So go for it. Make the pick. And Roderick Koch, I see you. You have not transgressed your messages here. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it was just a YouTube glitch there, but you're good.
Yeah,
you're cool.
I see the second one. Sometimes YouTube will hold something, but I don't see. I don't see anything. I didn't see it in there that it got held or anything. So maybe just got eaten. Mm-hmm. And that might be Branch that we're talking about.
Ryan Branch makes way more sense than Jordan Battle.
yeah, that's who it was. Thank you, CJ. I knew there was 2 of them, and I couldn't remember which one of them. But there is a lot of talk, and he says it's nothing to do with Grant. Nielsen uses a lot of 3 safety looks. We'll see. But yeah, with Jalen Hawkins is a decent number 3, but then you still need another one. Then I need more safeties. But they have revamped the secondary. But here I am, and what's interesting is I've got one of the most risky players in the top 10, or maybe the safest player in the top 10, and I've got my choice to make. I'm swinging. And I would love to have these choices here. I would love to be able to choose from Jalen Carter, Peter Skoronski, Christian Gonzalez. And I'm going Jalen Carter. I'm swinging big. I'm the Atlanta Falcons now. I'm swinging big. Number 4, and now I can get my edge. There's BJ Ojulari right there.
Let's scroll down a little bit just because I'm curious. I don't want to waste too much time on this. You got Jahmyr Gibbs still there. We talked about him earlier as well for the Falcons. And there was Steve Avila also would be an interesting one. And Terry Oceanboy says, Gibbs, my running back 1. He snapped in the SEC. Say Bijan is better, but the Pac-12 doesn't play defense. Well, I think you're talking Big 12, not Pac-12.
12. That's okay. We know what you mean.
But also they don't play defense. So Bijan is his backup. I think Bijan does a little bit more. He offers more between the tackles ability. But if you want to use Jahmyr Gibbs there, that'd be fine. I would totally get it. Steve Avila is also an interesting player there if you're talking left guard. I really like Ojulari. He's very redundant to Ebiketie and Malone, but he's also extremely talented. So I mean,
that's okay. I can put him on each side and have redundant on the other side coming from both ends.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd be pretty happy with Ojulari here. There's Tank Dell. I could go. Oh God, look, I get my center at 75. I'm going center here. I mean, we're talking best player available possibly. I could use a wide receiver, but how do I pass on an immediate upgrade at center who could possibly play some guard too?
My favorite player on the board from what you scrolled down and I saw was Kraft, Tucker Kraft. He's a little bit lower here, but I really like Tucker Kraft, man. From
tight end, I'm okay. I feel okay at tight end. I need an interior lineman for this team, and the need meets the value here with Weipler.
Mm-hmm.
Where I can move some guys around at center and guard, but I need an interior lineman, and I feel like he fits in that. I'm not reaching, is what I'm trying to say. He fits in that tier of players where I could get him in the middle. What I'd like to get is a wide receiver out of this mess somewhere.
I bet you. Hey, let's see if our guy Mingo is still available. That's one that would be.
He probably is. Here, let me switch. I'm just going to go ahead and switch this to wide receiver and take Jonathan Mingo.
If he's there, he might not be. Looks like he's gone.
His stock's starting to rise. He's not going to make it out of the second round.
Ooh, that's interesting. I could see him go one of the first picks in the third.
Trey Palmer was brought in by the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, I think my favorite guy here would be Tyler Scott. Personally, he's a little bit more.
I could go back to back too. Oh, look, he went. No, he didn't. He's still there. Where'd he go?
You took Tyler Scott.
But wasn't it switched back to all positions? I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, we took Tyler Scott. Anthony Johnson, he's always there at the end.
Tank Bigsby would be
running back. I'm not a big fan of Henry.
Dorian Williams would be great. Corey Trice is a really intriguing player. You're talking about that 3 safety look out there. Trice came to Purdue as a safety and then moved to cornerback. I really like.
Be there as my cheat code is Yaya Diaby.
Sal DeVary also would be a really awesome option here from Old Dominion. I think he could play all 5 positions on the offensive line. I love Dorian Williams, a blitzing linebacker. We haven't gone linebacker yet here as well. He'd be a really
I don't mind the linebacker if he's in that tier.
I love Dorian Williams. He's one of my favorites.
Dorian Williams. I like the linebacker in that tier. And then I think we have 2 picks here, but we'll blast through these here real quick. We're not going to spend much time on our last couple picks. Then we got to roll. Yeah, if Yasir is still there at 138, what does that do for Thomas Incoom?
He's gone. He for sure went.
Yeah, he went. Lonnie Phelps. I'm taking Lonnie Phelps.
Okay, the next one I'm going to say take here. This is just a shot in the dark, but he's on the board. I'm going to bang the table for this one for you, Scott. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to do it. Bryce Ford Wheaton. Tested like an absolute freak. Has some circus.
Where is he?
He's number 4 on this list right now. Wide receiver from West Virginia. Athletic freak, one of the highest Ross testing athletes in this draft class. You can take Stetson Bennett too if you want.
And I just took Stetson Bennett to round us out.
Yeah, he's Bryce Ford Wheaton's a really interesting player. Absolute athletic freak. Drops are out there on tape, but he can run. He can make circus catches. He's really, really intriguing.
All right. So.
And he's big.
Atlanta Falcons fans, we come out of this. Jalen Carter, BJ Ojulari, Luke Weipler at center, Tyler Scott at receiver, Dorian Williams, Lonnie Phelps, Bryce Ford, Stetson Bennett, quarterback. You're doing backflips, y'all.
Yeah.
You are. This would be a home run. This would be a home run. You run enough of these, you might be able to do this again. We did this live in front of everybody. I'd be pretty content with this. On that note, we've got to get out of here. Who I'm content with, I want to say thank you again to Michael Ranquillo for opening us up with a big super chat, for keeping the lights on, keeping my forehead nice and shiny. We will be back Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. We're going to head over to Mile High Huddle right now to talk some Denver Broncos, some draft, and all kinds of stuff. So if you want to keep the conversation going, come join us over there. Otherwise, we will see you Wednesday at 9 a.m. Thanks for being here, everybody. Hope you have a great week.
Yeah, and sorry for we didn't get to everybody's comments at the end, but we got to run. See us on the Broncos show.